When I was a freshman, my freshman year in, I think, the beginning of the second semester, there was a huge snowstorm that closed down Ohio Wesleyan for the first time in, I think, over a decade. We found out the classes would be canceled on Monday, and so we all celebrated by going outside and sliding down the hill in front of Smith and Stye on cafeteria trays. Some people were very adventurous and got the mattresses out as well. But it was a lot of fun, and they were plastic, so no harm, no foul.
And my favorite dorm story was I pissed off one of my fraternity brothers earlier in the year, and I fined him for doing something, whatever it was, because I was in the house, whatever it was, and he got mad at me. And we were best friends, and for 3 or 4 months, I forgot about it. And in the late spring, I was in the dorm, and everybody, most of the guys were in there already, and nobody's talking. We always talked in the dorm, and you learn how to sleep with people talking and whatever. And I'm lying there and thinking, why isn't anybody saying anything? And then there's something started crawling up my leg, and he found a snake that day, and he put it in my bed. And I screamed and flew out of the bed, and he went out of the dorm, and I chased him for about an hour. But we really got along well. We learned how to live with a bunch of people in one room.
I was the moderator of the Habitat for Humanity house, which is on Oak Hill Avenue. It was this dilapidated old house, but I lived next door to the Staleys, who were these very, very nice people. Mr. Staley was a retired professor, I believe, and I was a student teacher, so I would be up at about 5 or 6 in the morning, and a couple days I would go out, leave through the back door to go to my car to drive to school for that day, and I would just hear this sound every day while I was leaving, and eventually, probably after 2 or 3 times of hearing that, I looked over and noticed that Mr. Staley it was February, and he was power walking up and down his driveway forwards and backwards several times. And so he would say hi to me, he knew who I was, and every day from then on he would say hi to me during his, my routine of going to my car and his routine of going up and down his driveway to get some exercise in the morning. So I had fun.
My memory of where I lived was really brought to life again this morning when I toured the Stuyvesant Hall, and that's where I lived my freshman year. And I think one of my favorite memories of that, and favorite memories of my life, will be coming home to Stuyvesant Hall, and there were these 2 upperclassmen, or maybe they had even graduated at this point, but they'd be in the parlor. As you walked in the grand parlor, there was a piano there, and they would sit down and start playing the piano and singing folk music, and I loved it. And I would go in and sit down and listen to them for as long as I possibly could. And anytime they would come in and start playing, wherever anyone was, in their rooms or coming in, you'd hear that music, that folk music start, and we'd all run to the parlor and sit and listen to them play. And I loved that.
There was one time that I went to the Thompson grocery store, and they gave me several cases of ice cream bars because they had delivered the wrong kind, and I had nowhere to put them because I had one of the mini fridges that doesn't keep anything frozen. So I just kind of hung out outside of Thompson handing out cases of ice cream bars to other classmates. It was a good time.
We had some event planned as a res life when I was an RA. We had some event planned outside. I can't remember exactly what the event was supposed to be, but it was some outdoor activity. We were all supposed to have groups and competitions, and it was a pouring rainy day. So kind of we were like, we're not gonna be able to do this. But everyone showed up anyway, all the people that were going to come to it, and what it kind of turned into was a capture the flag, mud wrestling, kind of crazy, everyone out there just having a great time, just head to toe, mud, running around, laughing, playing in the rain. And I just remember we were all this was possibly going to fall apart, but all the students that were involved were so excited to do it that it didn't matter what we were doing, that we just went and had a great time. And I just loved that spontaneity, and just that everyone was just willing and open to just do whatever and just have fun with it.
I lived for my first year in Smith East with a roommate of mine from India and another guy from New York. And we had a room to ourselves, which was kind of nice. We would get together, some guys from the other hall and I, and we had a weekly video game night, and where we sat down and played some games over the network, back when the network was still new, and we'd get pizza from the Welch dining hall and just have fun. But in addition, we'd also get together and study because we had a lot of the same classes together.
For my first 3 years on campus, I lived in Welch Hall with actually the same people, which was really great. But I remember the first week, I was, getting kind of homesick because I was a freshman and didn't really have a lot of friends yet. And the housekeeper, when she came in to clean our bathroom for us, she left a little note on our whiteboard that said, "Have a good week, welcome to Ohio Wesleyan," with a little smiley face. And from then on, it was just such a good example of a sense of community here, and it really meant a lot.
I was a Phi Delt, but the most memorable thing about Phi Delt, among the most memorable things, was the fact that I lived in one of the best rooms. It was called McCracken Hall. Now the reason why it was called McCracken Hall is because several years earlier, the Phi Delts had gone down to Miami of Ohio and stolen a dormitory sign for a dormitory called McCracken Hall. They brought it back and put it up on the wall there, so there was a big McCracken Hall sign. So that was the coolest room to live in, which was called McCracken.
I was fortunate enough to live in Austin Hall. Lived on 3 different floors, 3 different roommates. Always had to run to get to class because it was a little further away, and every year I would sprain my ankle at least once or twice running. And then I lived in the House of Black Culture. So all 3 were great places.
I lived up at Chi-Phi for almost 3 years. One of my favorite experiences here was always the foam party that we did every year. It was always really early in the semester and a great way to kick off the year. It was a lot of work trying to waterproof the basement and keep all the tubs of dishwashing fluid going, and it always got a little bit filthy by the end of the night down there, but everyone always had a good time, and it really brought everybody in the house together for a good project.
All 4 years here, I lived in this 3rd floor Welch Hall, same side of the hall. Probably the most vivid memory is when my suite mate fell off a loft one year and did a fair amount of damage, and there was mass chaos in my room, and I ended up sleeping through the entire thing as people took care of him, took him to Grady Hospital, but I ended up sleeping through the entire thing and hearing about it the next morning. So that's my most vivid memory of Welch Hall.
When I first arrived here, my first dorm room was in Selby Stadium. I know that's not even open anymore, but the rooms were under the football stadium, if you could imagine that. My floor consisted entirely of Sigma Chi's and SAEs, who were all on the football team, and I was the only person that didn't play. Consequently, getting any studying done on a Saturday afternoon was impossible.
My freshman year, I lived in Thompson, and of course that's the dorm with the bathroom down the hall. Well, one morning my roommate went to class while I was in the shower, and of course he locked the door. And so I had to go up to the 2nd floor, to the women's floor, to get an RA to open my door for me. So that's my funny story.
Hi, I'm Frank Quinn from the class of '78. My favorite story about where I lived, I was a SIGEP, so I lived in a SIGEP house up on Williams Drive. And back in the winter of my senior year, we had an enormous blizzard and cold spell that with lightning that took the power out of the campus for a week. So everybody was huddled in a few buildings that were warm, but we didn't have any heat, but fortunately we had hot water. So I came home one day and the fireplace was raging and they'd run out of firewood, and I went up to my room and I noticed they had burned my favorite chair in the fireplace so everybody could stay warm. And it made me laugh because it was the ugliest chair. It looked like it come from the Salvation Army, and they said I didn't need it anymore because I was a senior.
MARIBETH AMRHEIN, and I graduated in 1955, way back then. I spent my freshman year in Stuyvesant. It was all girls at that point, and it wasn't long after we were there that we had a dorm raid. It was really kind of exciting in those days. And all the guys came, you know, charging down the hall, sort of thing. And I remember my roommate and I, we had no idea what was going on. We were terrified. So we pulled the chest of drawers over and barricaded our doors, so we felt really safe after that. Now we would have opened the door and gone out, but we didn't think of that in those days.
Came here as a lately arrived student. I ended up in a dormitory, which is very famous here. It's called East Selby. So we have a group called the Selby Boys. I think we stick together more so than fraternities or anything else in these class reunions. The Selby Boys are unique. And I'm very proud to have been a Selby boy, especially East Selby, next to the railroad tracks.
I was a sophomore, and I had to be in like 10 o'clock the latest on weekends. And one night I had to leave Springfield over to see them.
Springfield, Ohio?
And we got back to the bed, and it was 1 minute to 10.
Oh no.
And he and I lingered outside, and they kept saying, "Get in, girl, get in, girl." And I said, "I don't want to care if you expel me. I'm going to stay out here a quarter after 10.